I developed a love for coffee at a young age. I first started drinking coffee when I was with my grandparents in elementary school, and now I brew myself a cup of coffee every morning and I drink at least one more cup throughout the day. So, coffee can help with people's energy levels. So, people who have busy work and school lives or aren't getting enough sleep at night, coffee can help them by providing an energy boost to them. Anyone can brew themselves a cup of coffee. Today, I'll be talking about 3 points. First, the grind level on your coffee beans. Second, the water characteristics for a good brew. And third, the brewing process itself. Let's begin with the first of these 3 points, getting the right grind of your coffee beans. According to Moroni and other correspondents, the grind of your coffee beans will produce the taste of the cup of coffee. If you have too fine of a grind, the cup will taste really bitter, but if you have too coarse of a grind, it's going to taste really diluted. But it also really depends on the coffee brewing setup that you have. For example, I use all kinds of setups, but my go-to right now is my AeroPress. I got this as a travel setup that I could use when I go camping or on short weekend backpacking trips, but now I use it every day as my go-to setup. When I first started using it though, I was using a coarse grind that you would use for like a French press, but it was so watery and tasted terrible. It tastes like a coffee tea. And I just remember dumping it down the sink because it was so bad. And that's because the AeroPress requires more of a medium fine grind to get the really good coffee flavor extracted from the beans. Now, moving on to my second point, which is water characteristics. According to Farah, you need water that has hard minerals in it, like sodium, magnesium, and bicarbonate, so that it mixes and extracts the coffee flavor from the grind. If you use a distilled or a filtered water, it's not going to work nearly as well in bringing out the flavor due to there being like a lack of that chemistry with the mineral extraction. For example, in high school, I used to drink coffee with my band teacher every morning and at lunch. And this guy is like a coffee enthusiast. He brought in like $20 bags of coffee beans, and he has all kinds of fancy setups for brewing. But he was very precise with his methods of brewing. And one morning I saw while I was making our coffee, there was a Brita filter on the counter, and I thought, hey, why not? There's water there, it's clean. And so I went to pour it in to use it to heat it up, and this guy stopped dead in his tracks. And he explained to me why you shouldn't be using filtered water because it doesn't bring out the flavor in it as much. And now I always make sure that I'm using tap water so that I can really get that extraction of flavor in my cup of coffee. Also, according to Thurston and other authors, you need to make sure that the water temperature that you're using is in between 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have any less than that, the flavor isn't going to be really fully extracted from the grinds, and it's going to be a really weak and sour cup. But if you have a temperature that's hotter than that, it's going to over extract the flavor and it's going to be really bitter. And again, with my band teacher, he always made his coffee with water at 198 degrees Fahrenheit. And when I began making the coffee, I always had to make sure his machine was set up so that it would produce water at 198 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure if he could like tell exactly like if I was a degree or two off. I wouldn't doubt it, but I had to agree with him. It was a really good temperature for the water, and it brewed really well. And so sometimes at home I'll bring out my thermometer, but I usually just eyeball it when I'm boiling water in my kettle. So we've talked about 3 things: choosing the right grind size for a coffee and making sure you have the right choice of water. Now for my third and final point, brewing the coffee. According to Thurston and other correspondents, you need to pour your heated water over your grinded beans carefully just until they begin to absorb the water, rise up, and then create a plume. And then after 20 to 30 seconds, you want to give it a stir and then pour in the rest of your water. And then this allows for the gases to escape, so it enhances the flavor. And then you let it sit for a few minutes so that it brews, and then you pour it and then enjoy. So I think this part of making coffee to me is probably the most fun. It's really therapeutic because you get to see all of your hard work go into this simple process of just brewing the cup of coffee. And I love to watch the the grinds rise up and just watch the plume. And once you stir it up, it lets out the best coffee aroma, and the smell is almost as good as just drinking the cup, in my opinion. In conclusion, anyone can brew themselves a cup of coffee. Today, I've talked about 3 points. First, selecting your coffee bean grind level. For example, making sure that you have the right size for your setup. Second, making sure that your water is set. For example, making sure you have the right temperature on your tap water. And third, putting it all together to complete the brew. For example, adding the water in 2 phases. So I've been making coffee since I was young, and today I'm still learning all about the different techniques and the varieties that the drink has to offer. And using the steps I mentioned before can help you get started on learning how to brew a cup of coffee.